I'd like to convene this meeting of the Richland County Board of Supervisors meeting together tonight at 5 p.m. 1700 on April 28th, 2026 in the Richland County Boardroom. I would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Want to do roll call first?
Sure, yeah, roll call.
Yeah, we need to make sure we have a quorum. Okay.
So, do we have quorum?
Yeah, Carroll, Miller, Schoonover,
Here.
Kramer,
Here.
McKee,
Here.
Engel,
Here.
Meyer,
Here.
Welty,
Here.
Thompson,
Here.
Nolan,
Here.
Perry,
Here.
Collins, Johnsrud, Turk,
Here.
Wallsmith, Tagley, Pietro,
Here.
Frank,
Yes, online.
Severson,
Present.
Williamson, Cooey,
Here.
and McGuire. All right, you have 14 present. You have a quorum.
We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd ask that Supervisor Kramer lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to agenda item number 3 is approve our agenda. We have a 9-point agenda.
Make that motion.
Motion by Supervisor McKee, seconded by Supervisor Perry. Further discussion on our agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay, motion carries. Agenda item number 4 is public comment. Is there any public comment to come before the County Board of Supervisors?
have to sign the paper.
Sharon?
Thank you. I may have stated incorrectly, the EMS study did not suggest a third-party plan. If so, I stand corrected. However, the unanimous decision and vote of the unofficial ambulance was not to go with a third party. The letter that most of all of you received regarding the unified recommendation for the countywide EMS was endorsed by Aiken, Buena Vista, Dayton, Eagle, Henrietta, Ithaca, Marshall, Orion, Richland, Rockbridge, Willow, Boaz, Yuba, Richland Center, Fire Chief, and Richland County Ambulance. I just have a little tidbit to share. What is the 10-10-10 rule for meetings? The rule is a transformative approach that involves examining the potential impact of our decisions over district time horizons. When faced with choices, individuals are encouraged to consider the effect of their decisions over the next 10 minutes, 10 months, and 10 years. As representatives of your area and our county residents, I strongly encourage you to consider talking to all of your residents and encourage for the future of our EMS with our local. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon, for your comments. Are there any comments to come before the County Board of Supervisors at the April 28, 2026 meeting? None. Are there any public comments from the County Board of Supervisors? Any online? I would like to publicly acknowledge at this point in time the supervisor from District 7, Steve Meyer. This is his first meeting that he is here at the County Board of Supervisors. He was unable to make it, and I believe that he was sworn in prior to our county board meeting that we had a week ago. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk?
That is correct.
Okay, so welcome Supervisor Meyer. Agenda item number 5 is Richland County Supervisor Orientation. I'm going to turn that over to Administrator Clements and then Corporation Counsel Russell for the time being. Then I'm going to comment on a couple of things too.
I was gonna say, don't leave me out there all by myself.
So this orientation here is just to give you kind of a understanding of how our county board rules are set up. There are certain things that we're going to outline during this presentation of how county government works. I did talk with Administrator Clements earlier today. I'm in favor of just having this right now as a temporary thing, but then I would encourage more orientation at future meetings. So maybe we do a slot of how certain things are run at certain different meetings, just to give a brief detail instead of trying to do everything at once.
I'm getting the PowerPoint together, sorry.
So the first one's gonna be like the purpose, will be the county board. How we recognize the Richland County citizens and expectations of financial resources in county through the tax levy and other sources that are invested that we deliberate with. So I think this is what Tricia's.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so I just want to start out by welcoming you all to the 2026-2028 session of the Richland County Board. We're just going to provide some board education today. We're going to talk about county board structure, meeting schedule, meeting structure, per diems. We're going to do an overview of the rules of the board. And then I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the website so you can see how to navigate it and find different things on our website. First thing is kind of the structure of our committees and our different boards that we have. So you guys are the county board. There are 5 standing committees. They're the Executive and Finance, Natural Resources, Community and Health Services, Public Works, and Public Safety. Under each of those committees, I have listed all of the departments that report to that specific committee. So I'm not going to review all of this, and this PowerPoint will be added to the packet after the meeting. But this is kind of an overview. If you have a question about highway or you wonder who addresses highway issues, it goes to Public Works. If you have questions about different things that the Register of Deeds are doing, they report to Executive and Finance. So this is just a broad overview of those standing committees. And then there are numerous other boards and commissions, and you'll get an idea later of what all those other ones are. Any questions on this? Next thing I want to highlight is the meeting schedule. So for the county board, full county board meetings are the 3rd Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. Meetings are held here in the county boardroom. Agendas are posted by 1 p.m. on Friday, immediately preceding the regular county board meeting. And then for special board meetings, the agenda must be posted at least 48 hours in advance. Agendas can be amended up to 24 hours in advance. After 24 hours, it has to be pretty.
If it's less than 24 hours, there has to be extreme circumstances.
Yes. So typically you are going to know that Friday afternoon what's on the agenda, and the packet will be out there for you to read. Yeah.
So I'd like to comment on one thing here. So it says the full county board meetings are on the 3rd Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. That is up to the discretion of the county board itself as a whole. And so our county board rules say that at 6 p.m. on the 3rd Tuesday is when we will convene. Now, we can, as a county board, say different. And it has been in the past. I can tell you that the county board has met at 10 a.m. during the winter months, and then at 7 p.m. during the summer months. So we can choose the date and time. Supervisor Perry has mentioned a conflict that we have with the City of Richland Center at their meeting times, but it is up to this body to decide when we meet and at certain times. I just would like to encourage you to be thoughtful in the process of having our county employees come and speak also, that they're also working during the daytime, and then also our citizens. I can tell you that why it was changed to go to 6 p.m., well, it was 7 p.m. Got changed to 6 p.m., but why it was because people working during the daytime haven't been able to come. But I am a second shifter and a third shifter also that we're unable to make those times. So there is that caveat also. But we do get to make that time, and I'm welcome to offering time that the county board does change if they don't feel that it is time. But for this current time, it is 6 p.m. on the 3rd Tuesday. So, but further discussion could happen at a later date if you welcome.
So the standing committee dates and times, and as Carrie just said with county board, this is really set by the committee, but this is where they are at right at this moment. So Executive and Finance meets the 2nd Tuesday of the month at 5 and the 4th Monday of the month at 5 o'clock. Natural Resources is either the 1st or last Monday of the month at 9:30 in the morning. And the date of it depends on when the full county board meeting is, because they have timelines they have to follow. Community and Health Services is the first Thursday of the month. The time was at 9:30, then it was switched to 11. So again, that will be determined by the committee after they have that first meeting. Public Safety is the first Friday of the month at 8:30, and Public Works is typically held quarterly or as needed, and it is the second Thursday of the month at 4 p.m. And as Carrie stated, these times can be adjusted based on what the board decides or the committee decides. Here's the meeting structure for the full county board meetings. Now, this is outlined in the rules of the board. And this can be adjusted for the county board chair. So the chair does have the ability to adjust the agenda and where things are placed on that agenda. And here's the meeting structure for the standing committee meetings. So this is typically how they're set up. Later on, we will talk about how those agendas are created. Next thing we're going to talk about is per diems, and I'm going to have Derek take the lead in regards to this.
All right, so per diems are your guys' payments for attending meetings. So up here, per diem forms are also called claim reimbursement forms. So you file your per diem on that claim reimbursement form. So as of right now, you're getting paid $30 for every standing committee meeting, $40 for every county board meeting. And if there are any meetings that you're attending outside of the prescribed Appendix A committee structure, you will need to have approval from the county board chair to get paid for those. Not necessarily attend, but get paid for them. So when the new me is processing your per diems, just know that if it's a meeting that's outside of one that you're assigned to as a committee, you're going to need proof from the county or approval from the county board chair to get paid for that meeting. Okay, so make sure you have that. There were plenty of times that I would call the then chair Kirk and say, hey, Dave, do you approve payment for this? Because it's outside of the meeting schedule. So, or the meetings that you're assigned to. So that is looked at, and you need to be cognizant of that when you're doing those. So the post claim or the reimbursement claim form is located on your iPads. I think it should be on there now. It's a fillable PDF form that typically is the easiest way to do this. You can also access that on their iPads directly by filling out the form and then hitting submit, and it gets sent to the county clerk. There may be some structural changes on where those per diems are paid, but just know that you can access it on your iPad. You can fill it out on your iPad, hit submit, it goes electronically, and there's nothing else you need to do. I know sometimes people have issues with filling that out. So if you need to use a paper form, there is the PDF that you could fill out manually and just turn it into either the clerk's office or HR to process for payroll. Those per diems, they're paid on a monthly basis. And if you want to get paid, you need to submit the form. My predecessor used to chase people around with little half sheets of paper. I didn't do that, and I don't believe it's our responsibility to do that. If you want paid for your meetings, then you need to submit essentially the county board's version of a time card like every other employee would have to. So make sure to fill those forms out. When you fill them out, we do double check to make sure you went to those meetings, and those need to be submitted no later than the last day of the month in which the claim was occurred in. So your May meetings should be submitted to payroll or the clerk's office no later than 5 days after that month ending. There are some times when per diems are submitted 3 or 4 months at a time. It's really not acceptable and really not the proper way that we should be processing that payroll. So you need to make sure you submit those on a timely manner. From experience, it's kind of a pain and slightly annoying to have to go back several months to see what committees people attended and if they were paid, because then there's the reported twice. Just submit them within 5 days after the month ends in which they incurred it. It just makes it easier for you. It makes it easier for processing, and it's just more, it's more accurate to process the payroll that way. And if they're not submitted within those 5 days, they're just not going to be paid until the next payroll cycle. And for you guys, that's monthly. Well, it used to be monthly. Now it's a little more, it can go a little sooner because of the new Tyler software. But historically, if you didn't turn it in by the deadline, you just waited for another month for reimbursement because we did county board payroll once monthly. The claim forms, like I said, can be turned in electronically in person. If you do not want a per diem, I know there are several of you that do not take a per diem. That's fine. You just need to email the clerk and HR in writing that you do not want to process, or you don't wish to receive that per diem. Okay, so make sure you let HR or the clerk know that. also on the form. Some people use that claim reimbursement form as a way just to track the meetings they attended. There's a box you can check on there that says, I don't want to receive payment. So, we all use that form for a few different things. That form was also created with the idea of if we ever did move to a stipend form of payment for county board members, that we would use it to track attendance at meeting if attendance was going to be used to determine whether you were paid your stipend every month or not. So if you don't want the per diem, then let the county clerk and the HR office know. If you want your per diem, you're going to have to come in and fill out new hire paperwork, your basic paperwork, right? So the 1099, W-4, those basic documents, we'll need those before you can get paid. If you don't turn those in and submit those in, you're not going to get paid because we can't create an employee file for you. So make sure you do that. If you have any questions about that, then let us know. And I guess I got ahead of myself there, but any questions about per diems? It's pretty straightforward. Yes.
I got a question.
Yes.
Continuing board members, did they need?
Fill out which one? No, unless it's changed, you can update that as often as you need to, but if you do not, if you're new and nothing's changed. Yes, Amy.
If you filled out before for the continuing non wanting to be paid, you still want us to email again?
If you're not collecting per diem?
Yeah.
I think it would be great to do that at least once a session to say you don't want it. This way, whoever takes my spot knows you don't want it, and we have that documentation paper trail, because I really like that.
Okay.
So yes, I would advise you, if you do not want per diem, to email myself, the clerk, before Friday at 4:30. We'll make sure we have that on record. Yes, Kevin.
So we get 30 for the subcommittees.
40 for county board, and you get mileage at 72.5 cents a mile, which is the federal rate, which was just increased for some of you earlier this year. So.
Okay, but how about for the committees like public safety, natural resources?
Those are all other committees. So for the purposes of the $30 and $40 is for county board only. Any other committee meeting, standing committee or one of the other ad hoc committees, it's $30. So it's $40 for county board, $30 for everything else. If it's not a committee assignment, you have to get approval from the chair before it's going to be paid. So if you attend that and the chair says, no, I don't approve payment, you're not getting paid. The other thing to mention too, which a lot of people miss, and we don't think about this when we set meetings, is that in your county board rules, it says that meetings that occur an hour before or an hour after county board you're not going to get double per diems for those. So I know it's common to have a meeting a half hour before county board. Well, the rules say you're not getting paid for that meeting as well. So I don't know, 30 bucks is $30, but just think about that when you're setting payment, because if you submit per diems, they won't get paid if it's that within that time frame of county board meetings.
Thank you.
And that's also in the rules.
That's the county board rules.
Yes.
So how does self-organized counties work? Because I know if we were a self-organized county, they allow us to be able to have a county board meeting and a committee meeting the same day.
You can have those the same day. I'm just talking about the payment of the per diem.
Yeah, that's what they allow it for, self-organized counties.
I don't know. Can't answer that, sorry.
I can't answer the question off the top of my head. My understanding is that your guys' rule, when the rules were created, that was what it was done. And we can't modify that to take effect until the next session. So we could modify it so that you can take that away, but that could not apply to you in this session. It could only apply to 28, 30?
Yeah,
28. But I can happy to answer that for you and get that answer for you.
I think that rule's been around for quite some time.
But that's 1 hour before, 1 hour after the county meeting.
It's half hour, right?
It's under reimbursement.
We can look it up while we.
Yeah, why don't we let's move on.
Any other questions with per diems?
Well, I just got the question, why was that ever a rule enforced in the first place? I don't understand.
I don't know.
Why,
It's section 2.07F.
I understand it's there.
Right.
Why it was first introduced, what's the thinking behind that?
I don't think any of us were here.
Yeah. If you look at 2.07 sub F, no compensation shall be paid for attendance at any meeting held 1 hour or less, or 1 hour 1 hour or less before or 1 hour or less after a county board meeting.
Chair, this is Bob Frank.
But
I do know the
self-organized.
answer to that.
Where's that at? But Supervisor Turk.
I believe we are a self-organized county, actually.
Correct, we are. So that's what I'm asking.
It was put in because we were having circumstances where, for instance, committee on committees would meet 15 minutes before the board meeting.
Yeah.
And leadership at that time, which has been years ago, didn't think it was fair to pay out 2 per diems for a very short meeting right immediately preceding or post a county board meeting. We've also had circumstances where we recess the county board and committee meets during the meeting. And so, again, didn't want to pay a separate per diem since everybody was already here anyway.
So next we'll do is we'll start talking about the rules of the board. And then we'll pull them up, and this will be a joint venture between the 4 of us in this row here. I do want to start out by kind of going over one line of the purpose. It says the county board further recognizes county citizens' rightful expectation that the financial resources provided to county through tax levy and other sources shall be invested in a wise and deliberate manner. And I think that's a good summary of what your guys' role is to really be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. Taxpayers have voted for you and entrusted you to make good decisions. And ultimately, everything goes back to that dollar that they work hard for, and that comes to us. The next thing that we are going to talk about is section 2.02, county board meeting agenda responsibilities. And Derek, if you could talk about how the agendas are created and how that process works.
So agendas for county board and standing committees are essentially created the same way. So for county board meetings, I work directly with the board chair. So 2.02A says the board chair in consultation with the county clerk and the county administrator too. This is kind of a team effort. We're responsible for the contents of the agenda. So typically the Tuesday or so before the agenda, always trying to be 5 steps ahead of everything. But I will put a draft agenda of the county board content or the contents of the county board agenda. I will reach out to the county board chair and say, here's the draft of the agenda, do you approve or not? It is not my responsibility nor anyone else's other than the county board chairs to determine the content of that agenda, which is why I, and my predecessor would presumably do the same thing, or my follower or whatever. The county board chair sets that agenda. So myself, usually the administrator would work together to put this agenda together, serve that up to the board chair and say, do you approve to post or not? That agenda needs to be posted by 1 p.m. on Friday. That's the way that the rules state that. In addition to the agenda being posted, all the meeting packet will be ready for posting no later than 1 p.m. on Friday. So you will all receive by 1 p.m. on Friday an email likely from the deputy county clerk that's going to say, here's the meeting agendas, here it is, the items are uploaded in your packet. When we say distributed, that used to mean I'd make 21 paper copies of everything, only to recycle 95% of them. Distributed means that you can find this information on your lovely iPad there, so distribute it electronically, okay? So that's how the county board agenda is going to work. I will work directly with the chair to set that agenda, and I will also work with the administrator to kind of put that agenda together. So it's a team effort between the 3 of us, but ultimately that agenda is the county board chair's item to approve. And I will not post that until I get approval from the county board chair to post that. I typically like that in writing too, just so I have proof that I got approval. In addition, standing committees are essentially kind of the same thing, really. The standing committee is going to meet. I will confer with the standing committee chair to say, what do you want on your agenda? And it's that same discussion. I'm told what's put on there. I'm then provided all the documentation for the meeting packet to support it and post those agendas. Agendas are posted for those meetings, standing committee meetings. We try to post them 7 days in advance. And that's what all departmental staff too are very used to now, is that they have to get their agenda item covers to me and any supporting documentation to us a week before the meeting, because that's when we post it. So you should expect to see standing committee agendas at least 7 days before. And county board agendas will be released to you Friday at 1 p.m. Again, I will coordinate with the standing committee chairs and the county board chair for the contents of those agendas. It's not our responsibility to make that up, and we're not going to guess what you want on the agenda. So county board chair and standing committee chairs, you need to communicate that with us because they're your agenda to set. Clerk posts that information and whatever corresponding documentation goes with that meeting. That'll all be posted on the N drive on your folders in the applicable year and committee, and then is also posted on the county's website. Granted, as we just said with agendas, they can be amended, and because life happens, we don't always get those agendas out 7 days before. But I guarantee you, they're going to be out per open meeting laws, because if we don't post the agenda within the time frame for open meeting laws, we're just simply not gonna have the meeting, because that'd be an open meetings law violation, and we can't do that. So anyone have any questions about agenda covers? So the agenda cover is what explains what the agenda item is. Department heads are expected to create those when they go to a standing committee, so it can be included in the packet. And if they're not present to talk about it, we have the information we need to, you all to discuss whatever you need to. The agenda covers are accompanied with whatever supporting documentation. That agenda cover corresponds to that agenda item. And that's discussed, these things kind of move up from department head level to standing committee chair. And then, if they're going to a standing committee and they move forward to county board, those are automatically put on the county board agenda. And I just confirm that with the chair.
I can add one thing. If it goes to closed session, generally that's going to be run through by our office in regards to making sure that A, it's an issue that can go to closed session, and B, that it's noticed correctly. And, sometimes we say they can go to closed sessions, and sometimes we say they can't, just based on what Wisconsin open meetings law allows for. So those are generally run by our office as well, to make sure that we're not running into any issues.
We're gonna talk about closed session later on also, but so the chairs of those committees, they can add agenda items after you publish them 7 days in advance. They
Yes.
can say, hey, there's a circumstance where we need to add this on there, and they can up to 24 hours, correct?
As long as we can post that and we're confident that we posted it within the minimum, the 24-hour posting, or as if there's a case, yes, we can, as long as it's within reason and open meeting law compliant, yes.
Can we talk about what the 24-hour period is? Can we post it Saturday at noon?
Generally, it's going to be considered business days.
So 5 PM Friday to 5 PM Monday would be 24 hours. So you cannot post something unless it's an emergency.
Correct. So like emergency examples would be, a wall got knocked down and Public Works is meeting the next day on a building and we have to address it at that point. I could think of an employment issue that would be not all employment issues would be considered emergency, but there could be some things there. I've done some health and safety issues where we had an inspection for a client once and all of a sudden the building was not tenable anymore. So we were able to put that on in a 6 hour notice, some things like that. But I've been doing it for 19 years. I can less than two hands, I counted the number of times that we've done that, but it is doable.
And the agendas are posted online. They're also posted on the bulletin board down here in the first floor of the courthouse. And I've now started to post them on the third floor of the window up at the clerk's office. So this way, there's no question that they were posted appropriately. There has been times when we used to post them on the first floor that those agendas had been removed. And I'm not okay with that because that causes complications, because in order for us to be in compliance with open meeting laws, we have to post electronically on the county's website and one more spot, which is typically for us downstairs on the first floor of the courthouse. But again, there was an agenda removed one time before we had the lockbox, which is why the lockbox is now down there. And I post them on the third floor as well. So they're posted in two public spots. Yes, it's in the same building, but two different spots and on the county's website.
During public hours too, that people
That's
are
correct.
able to access that during public hours. And the county used to publish was the one, was at the paper, the Richland Observer. That was our other form of notification.
And so we do publish for election notices, all of those are still published in the Observer, and that's our official paper. So those notices are published in there. Those are different than agendas, but still we still publish stuff, and you've seen it published in the paper minutes and that kind of.
Mr. Chair, I think there was one mistake that I may have mentioned or agreed to. I think it's 4:30 would be the time because that's when the building shuts down rather than.
Understandable. It's 4:30 for here.
I think that the important thing to remember is for the county board chair and the standing committee chairs, there's going to need to be communication. So if the clerk's office is calling you, they're not calling to hang out. They're calling because they need information to post it. So if you can do anything and be helpful, then be prompt when we're calling, because we have stuff to do and it's hard to chase everyone down sometimes. So please be respectful of whoever staff member is going to do that, reaching out to you, because they're just trying to do their job.
Does a public place constitute this building, or does it constitute any public place that people are able to access that an agenda be
It
posted?
would be where we traditionally posted, which would be this building.
And with that, there are some things too, like with borrowing, when we have our notices for borrowing and the resolutions for those, I will take them then to City Hall, I'll take them to the library, because again, doing a little more than I have to, but we have to sometimes post those in 3 public places outside of the website. I have taken them to those other facilities, of course, approving that with them to make sure no one can say that we weren't in compliance with what we're supposed to do. I like to have.
Are those defined though? You'd always go to the same places?
I typically go to the city hall and library because again, that's where it's accessible and that's only in cases for like the borrowing, if there's special things where you have to post in 3 public places.
Because township is the same thing you used to have, but they were defined. It's always in this place. You know what I mean?
I always use the same ones just for consistency.
I didn't know if we had a definition in anything, but once you go online, then you can get away from that. That's a great advantage to that.
I just like to make sure we're covered and no one can say we weren't compliant with those agendas being posted.
Do any other supervisors have anything on our agenda for agenda responsibilities, how our agenda works is published? Our questions, we'll move on to county email addresses. So every county board supervisor will be issued a county email address. You start with your first name with a dot or a period, and then your last name at co.richland.wi.us. So this email is your official email as a county board supervisor, and you shall respond to those requests from your constituents or other citizens, because you are a county officer now that you are elected. So you're not beholden to your constituents, which you are. They're the ones that elect you, but you are a county officer. It does state that, state statutes, but so you can respond to anybody that you deem necessary to. So I would recommend not responding with your personal email address, because your personal email address, if you respond to county matters, is subject to open records request. So anything that you have in your emails that you have publicly will come to light on a public records request. So you each have an email for the county, and that's given to you by EMS or MIS. And those of you who choose not to have an iPad, you still will have that, and you still have access to a computer if you need that. Yeah, I've understood that, to access that. So are there any other questions? Mr. Perry?
Can you print from the iPad? I haven't found a way to do that.
So I have found a way to do that, and I have a wireless printer. I'm able to go into my Bluetooth and my wireless connections and click and then come up with my printer that way. I'm not sure how your specific circumstance is going to work, but it is possible.
I have a printer that says it's wireless, but I haven't been able to prove that.
So I've had some instances before. Our MIS department is willing to work with you on that, because they have worked with me. And that would be beneficial to our behalf as supervisors that they do that, because we do need to print off information. Supervisor Taylor Petrie?
I was going to ask a question about access to a printer in case we do need to print for county business. Do we go to the MIS office or schedule something in if we need to print out a specific packet? Or do we take care, how does that work? Like if we need a paper copy of something?
I would assume that would be okay, but I'm going to refer to Administrator Clements and.
Not that that's probably happened very often, but let's say I'm going to a meeting that's.
So this is what I understand.
Wide, you know.
This is what I understand in my interpretation, which is not a lawyer, but I know that if I was a public member and were to go to the clerk's office and say, hey, could I have something printed off? He says, yes, you can. It's going to cost this much. I know as a supervisor in your capability doing that, it should not cost you anything to be able to have something printed off. Right?
Okay.
Because you are in your official capacity. Now, if you ask for something that's not in your official capacity, we have to pay what we have set in our schedule fee.
And I would concur.
My opinion with that.
No, I would concur with that. If you need something, you need the agenda, you need the resolutions, and you can't access them, you just reach out to the clerk and get those. If you, like the chair said, if you are requesting employment information on all the employees, that would be outside the scope, and And so that would be what we normally would charge for public document requests.
All right. Thank you.
And one thing that I will want to add, and I'm presuming I talked about it for those who had computer orientation today, there is a help desk. So if you do have questions, you can email the help desk and MIS will help you. So I know that there are times that board members get very frustrated with the iPads. We understand things don't always work like they're supposed to. So please send the help desk ticket to MIS and they'll be able to troubleshoot and problem solve.
And if I could just add one more thing on the email addresses, especially for the new members. What the chairman said about your private accounts is real. You're attempting to skirt public information requests by using your personal email. That will ultimately come out in discovery if we get to that point. Same thing with if you do text message. That's the same concept. So if you were texting regularly on county business, even though it's not a county phone, if it's for county business as a public employee, those text messages are also able to be obtained. So I just want to throw that out for everybody. The chairman said, I would strongly encourage you to follow that directive.
Any more on county email addresses? Each have one. I encourage you to use it, but cautious with that because it is subject to open records. But you need to do your due diligence, though, as a representative of your constituents.
The last thing I was going to say in my notes, don't reply all. Okay?
Yes.
When you reply all, and it's other than, it will be construed as violating open meetings law. Because you were communicating. Other when the administrator or the clerk sends it out to you to have that information, that's called administrative, that's fine. But if you start commenting back and forth, reply all, you've all of a sudden broken open meetings law.
So there's a tab at the end, down at the bottom of your email addresses where it allows you to reply all, or forward. If you do need to reply, if it's something that Administrator Clements or Clerk Kalish or soon to be the newly appointed clerk, I guess, or Administrator or Council Russell, you need to reply to them individually, and I would create a new email on top of, rather than just forwarding or attaching to that, I just would create a new email and say, hey, regard to this, that way it's not subject to that actual email where it's at, because that way you don't know if you did collect or select reply all, because that does violate open meetings law, and then you are subject to violating quorum, I guess.
Next thing we're going to talk about is board relationship with the administrator, department heads, and employees, and we'll have Nathan take the lead on this one.
And honestly, in preparing for today, I didn't want to read everything word for word, but for this one paragraph, I generally want to read word for word. Because I think it encapsulates really what your form of administrative government is. And the county board serves as a legislative body in county government. As such, the county board's role is to enact policy. To implement policy, the county board establishes the county board shall appoint a person as county administrator according to Wisconsin statutes 59.18 or 18, parent 1. County administrator shall perform all duties and have such authority as specified under Wisconsin statute 19.18. The county administrator position description, these board rules, and as otherwise may be authorized and directed by the county board from time to time. Department heads are responsible and shall report to the county administrator. County board members desiring information or a report from a department head or other county employees shall request such information or report either in the context of a county board or a committee meeting or from the county administrator. Individual county board members shall not provide direction to the county administrator, a department head, or a county employee unless expressly authorized by these board rules or official action of the county board or committee, other board or commission. So encapsulates it as best as I can. You guys, as a board, you're the elected officials who direct policy. The administration and the department heads then implement that policy. It is your responsibility not to interfere with that administration, as best as I can say it. So for example, we've got a highway department here that Tommy Smith is upset with Jimmy Smith about something at the highway department and it gets into your ear. You don't handle it. Okay, you can address it initially with the administrator or the department head, but that's your involvement in it at that point initially. You don't try to smooth things over. You don't try to rectify the situation. That's not your role. And in the administrative government, that's how it works. I'm just trying to be as direct as I can. I'm not trying to minimize what you do. You guys are incredibly important. You are in charge of the administrator. You are in charge of the department heads on a grand scheme. The best way I can explain it, or when I was preparing for today, the analogy is just like if it's a for-profit company, in the sense that you have a CEO and then you have the board of directors. Ultimately, the CEO, or in this case, the administrator, handles the day-to-day operation. The board of directors guides policy. And that's really where you're at in this regard. Any questions for me in that? Anything from you guys to add?
You can go and talk to county employees if they approach you, but you just need to understand the hierarchy. I was looking for a different word for that. Chain of command, I guess. To understand the chain of command here for that. So, but I wouldn't disregard that, because that's your ability as a county board supervisor, because ultimately us as a whole oversee the county administrator. But I shouldn't say she, the county administrator does oversee all department heads. So you can take those concerns from people, because sometimes they feel more comfortable reaching out to you, but ultimately the county administrator does oversee that. And then if you do have questions about the county administrator, they go to the county board chair. Then there is a process when it goes to the county board chair, that if you don't feel the county board chair is addressing it, then it does go further on to the county board. So there is a process for that. Mr. McKee?
So if, let's say somebody from Public Works comes to me and expressing their concerns about something, is it okay for me to say, I will communicate that to the county administrator?
That's actually perfect.
But I would listen to their concerns though, and add value to that. I wouldn't disregard that, saying that's not my purview, that's the administrator thing. You'll ultimately, in the end, are one voice out of all of us, but you need to listen to their concerns. So.
But not for more than 15 minutes.
I would say the biggest challenge that this board has had is since we went to an administrator. Because we're at the third administrator now. And when the first administrator started, the board still tried to meddle in everything that the administrator did. And it got kind of the opposite of that with the second administrator. And I think finally at the third administrator, we've kind of gotten better at understanding our role. It helps when you have new people to the board too, because then you don't have the way we did it before. So some of us have been on both ends of it, so we're kind of, I think we're getting better at understanding what our role is.
How I like to look at the administrator part of that is like, I've always had this theory, I guess. So I'm going to use the highway department as an example. And so let's say we're the Public Works Committee and there needs to be a 20 by 20 by 20 hole dug in the ground. Just random. And so we talk about this as a Public Works Committee. It's a policy decision that we need this 20 by 20 by 20 hole dug. And we're discussing the merits. Well, we say, because of our financial constraints and our equipment that we have, we can't use an excavator to do that. We want it all dug by hand. But then we have, as a county, we own an excavator that was able to dig that hole out, and it can be done within a cheap amount of time, but it's going to cost us this much money. But if we had employees dig this hole, it's going to cost us less amount of money, but take more employees to do that. Well, we decided, hey, we wanted to have the employees out there to dig this hole and not use our equipment, because it's going to cost us some more money, and we're going to go to less costly effective and have our employees dig it, because it was projected to only take so much time. So now the employees are out there, we're digging it, and then we come by as a supervisor and we see that. We say, hey, I'm a supervisor. We come over there and we're looking at that hole, and this person is lifting with his back and not his legs. And he's not putting his foot on the shovel and doing that. And we come over there and say, hey, employee, you need to put your foot on the shovel and you need to lift with your legs like this. And throw off your left and not your right, you know. That's us meddling into the day-to-day operations of how to work. That should be up to that department head to say, hey, this employees are, I know our board said, hey, we can't use this excavator for this. We have to dig, but here's your proper ways of digging and go into that. We meddle into saying, hey, what are the merits of having an excavator versus our employees doing that? And that's where we come at with that part. So that the administrator deals with that. If we weren't excited about how maybe the department had handled that situation, of how he was doing that, we could go out and talk to them and see that, but we can't direct that employee to do something. That is up to that department head and the administrator to make that decision. But if we do see that there is a concern with the way that that is handled, then the administrator is the way that that gets handled by. And ultimately, if you don't see that that gets handled, then that's where we come involved as a county board. Yep. Oh, Tiffany, yep.
I just want to add one thing to, like, if a person comes with you to a complaint or whatever, and you listen to them, it's not our ability or job to promise them back that such and such will be taken care of. That's not our job. That's up to the administrator and the chair also too. So I know a lot of times if a complaint was brought to me, I would be like, okay, I am going to send this on with your name. I'm going to send this on to the administrator and chair so that they know that information, but it's not our job to promise them back.
Yep, you are correct on that. Also, if you do bring that on and you don't feel that resolve is happening between either the administrator or the chair, there is other means to go through the county board, which all of us are, to be able to have that situation handled. But there is a process for that. So it just does not die at the county board chair or the administrator. So if you feel that it's something that's strongly that's not happening, your other colleagues are the ones that make the statement.
The next thing we are going to talk about is official statements by board members.
Well, so it says, board members' rules of conduct, each board member shall uphold the office.
Yep.
Oh yeah, no board member other than the board chair is authorized to make any official statements or comments on behalf of the county board. If a board member makes a statement or comment, the board member shall ensure such statements or comments contains language indicating the statement or comment reflects personal views of the board member, not the views of the county board. So there might be a resolution at one point where the county board agreed to, but you as an individual supervisor decided not to, or not say not to, but disagreed with that. After that is finalized, that is the actual official board statement on that, and that's where it has to go. You can still say, hey, I don't appreciate that, but when you talk to somebody or out in the public, you need to say, this is the action that the county board did make. However, I feel personally that this is how it should have went, but this is how we're gonna deal with this, because that's how the county board chose to go with that. Other aspects of it is that if you want to talk out in public and you're disagreeing with a way that the board might be going now, but there's no official action, you can also voice your opinion. In my opinion, or my office as supervisor from District 4 feels that, hey, we need to do this. That's talking with you, and you do have your First Amendment right to express your views as that. But as a county board as a whole, once we decide on something, you need to favor that because that's what we decided on. You can always speak out against that, but we chose that as a whole. And that does not mean that you need to go out, it should not mean that you need to go out and say, hey, just because the county board went this way and I disagree with this, I'm going to be defiant. Because you don't want to be defiant in that, because you can't. Because you are one person of our 21 members, now 18, I guess, or 19 members that we have. So you're one of 19 at this point in time. So whether the county board went this way and you chose to go the other way, that's fine. You're speaking on your own, but you're not speaking on behalf of the county. So.
The next thing we'll talk about is the board members' rule of conduct. Carrie, start.
I don't know. So board member rules of conduct, we're gonna uphold the office and faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of a board member to the best of our ability. Number 2 is act in the best interest of the Richland County government at all times. 3, refrain from conduct which a reasonable person would deem unethical, offensive, or otherwise contrary to community values. So that is actually up for deliberation. I guess I would refer to a corporation council on that one. But number 4 is be responsive to the needs of the community. That is up to you individually. If you choose not to be or to be, that's up to you. But just remember that your constituents are the ones that helped you have a seat here on the county board. Number 5 is represent the interests of constituents by attending and participating in meetings adequately prepared for meetings and observe the rules of decorum and these board rules at meetings. And number 6, conduct Richland County government business in a manner consistent with the law. Refrain from discussions surrounding Richland County business outside the appropriate meetings and channels of communications. So we'll go back up to that other number, is it number 3? Yeah, refrain from conduct from which a responsible person would deem unethical, offensive, or otherwise contrary to community values. So community values is kind of a broad spectrum that we're looking at here. That where would unethical come into?
Unethical is the only one up there that I would kind of agree with.
That's why
I mean, that's easily defined.
The rest of them
We have a code of ethics, and so you can follow that code of ethics. The other ones are, I didn't draft it, so it's easy for me to throw stones. The other 2, I don't think that you could quantify or determine. So at some point when we do a new evaluation, we may want to look at those. Because I may say, hey, I think it's not normal in our community for people to wear blue hats. And you may decide that it's, blue hats are the way to go. I had to make sure nobody's wearing a blue hat before I said that. But that's why I struggle with the offensive, otherwise contrary to community values. I understand why it was probably put in there originally. But as somebody looking at it with a fresh set of eyes, I would probably recommend ultimately that we strike those 2 out at some point. But realistically, from an ethics standpoint, we have a code of ethics. As long as you follow that code of ethics, we're fine. And so, but the other 2, I'm not going to tell you I drafted them.
So on the code of ethics, though, if you look in your county officials handbook that we have here, that you all were given, and 94613 kind of describes how our ethics as a county board supervisor are. And I would encourage you to actually read this book. It talks about that. There's also 1959 for public officials in local government on ethics too. So chapter 11. So I would look at this for ethics. There are a bunch of other things as far as you having a business and being able to bid on public works projects or other things within the county that may come into conflict, or you might have a family member that could be a spouse or providing 1/3 or half or whatever that is of your financial income could portray an interest in that. So you need to take that all into account. One that could be an ethics issue also. And then if there are any other issues that you have, like you need to state that you're speaking on behalf of yourself in your district and not on behalf of the county itself. Unless the county has come out with a statement, and then you can speak on behalf and say, hey, the county stated this, this is the way the county is going. But always remember your safeguard is for yourself because you're protected by your First Amendment. So
the next section is board member conduct at meetings.
Yep, and I'm going to hit on a couple things that may not be listed up there at this time too. Robert's Rules of Order is how we're governed. We will be here or somebody from our firm will be here for all meetings. I will not say that we are licensed parliamentarians, but we generally know we have certainly a very decent working knowledge. I also have a parliamentarian on speed dial. I have used that before in meetings if there's been issues. And so from that perspective, we're generally well represented, but Robert's Rules of Order is what's followed. You should be directing all comments towards the chair or the committee, either board chair or the committee chair, rather than saying, hey, I disagree with you, or I think that's incorrect, or what he or she said. We're trying to reach a level of decorum. Comments should be respectful, courteous, appropriate, and germane to the topic. And that's where I want to jump into a few things. We have to make sure that we are talking about what is before the board. Okay, so if we're talking about a building project that we're trying to build an addition on across the street, and then all of a sudden we're talking about what we're charging for the fair, I'm being a little absurd. We can't do that. And that especially is true in closed session. We'll talk about closed session in a second, or in a few minutes, but that goes for everything. And if something is not on the agenda, it's not debatable. So for example, the chair brought up meeting times at the beginning of that. Nobody can then all of a sudden move today to change the meeting times because it's not on the agenda, because that would be a violation of open meetings law. And so we have to be very careful that we are following open meetings law. The reason that is, I have experience suing municipalities for violating open meetings law, and I have experience defending municipalities in violating open meetings law. My job is, we don't want to get there. The only person who wins are the attorneys. And so we want to try very hard to make sure that we're not doing that. Additionally, when you're at committees, we need to make sure, we're not always at committees. You have to make sure that you are staying on what the bullet points of the agenda are. Okay? Additionally, if you're there as a committee member, or as a non-committee member and attending it, you should not participate. Okay? So for example, if we are at a zoning meeting and there's a quorum there, and then all of a sudden 4 other members of the board come to the meeting, you shouldn't sit at the table and start discussing, because that is automatically a violation of open meetings law, because we have a potential quorum of the county board there. We didn't notice that. So you have to be very cognizant of what we're doing. You are allowed to go and listen, and we'll talk about even staying potentially in closed sessions. You're allowed to do that. You're just not allowed to participate. Otherwise, we need to do notices of possible quorums of the entire county board. Do you understand what I mean by that when I say quorums of the county board? Any questions on that? Okay. So overall, that's kind of really where I wanted to get. The last thing on quorums, I'll just throw it in here so we don't have to talk about it. You have to be very cognizant or wary of walking quorums. Okay, what I mean by walking quorums. Okay, I call somebody and say, hey, here's how I'm going to vote on something. And then that person calls somebody else and says, here's how I'm going to vote on something. That person calls another person and says, I'm going to vote on this. You're lining up the votes. Now, I'm not saying you can't advocate for yourself or advocate for your position before, but you cannot line up votes and make a decision before we come into the meeting. That was a walking quorum. I have litigated that before in the past in defense of a previous client. And so we want to just make sure that you are conducting, this is Wisconsin rules, not my rules. They want you to do the discussions and determination in public open meetings.
What constitutes as a quorum, though? So far as committee, if you're discussing a committee item, what is the number of people that we have?
It's
7, but
it's more than 1/2 of the committee membership.
or county board.
Yeah, so if county board, if I'm doing a walking quorum, I would technically have to talk to, now there's 19 of you, right? I'd have to talk to 10 to get those lined up. Or 10 of us together would have to, I don't have to talk to 10 people, but I talk to the chairman, who then talks to the vice, so on and so on. If I get to 10, that's a walking quorum. Okay? And so you want to be very clear on that walking one, is that it's not the fact that I've contacted 10 people. It's that I've helped coordinate, either directly or indirectly, 10 other people to make their decision. Or in the case of a committee, I don't know how many people on it, 4 people on a committee or something of that nature. Any questions on that?
Going out to dinner, eating, or a chance, what is a chance gathering? I'll put it that way.
Chance gathering would be dinner. Chance gathering would be, hey, we're part of the Methodist church, our Lutheran church, and we all, there's some of us who were at the fall festival. For example, when I was on the school board, this is me personally, 5 of our 7 members all attended the same church. And so if we were at church, that's a unexpected gathering, those types of things. But if we're at a function where, for example, I can remember one client that we did, they sent certain number of members of a board to look at a hospital. Okay, because that particular client had a hospital. We had to notice it up that we were going to a different hospital in Russ County. So we had to do that, because that was more for county business. But if you guys are down, if you're just randomly meeting each other at a restaurant, I'm not saying you can't do things socially. We just have to make sure that try not to be in a quorum, as much as possible, and in a public setting, it's fine.
And discuss public business.
Correct.
And discuss how your family's doing and whatever else. But
Yeah, but you could be accused.
you could be, but that's gotta be a strong argument that they gotta prove that you actually
Exactly.
talked about that.
Yes.
And what evidence do they have?
But, you know,
Correct. But that's why voice is a lot better than text.
What he's saying there is that it's better to talk with voice because he's able to defend that better than it is if you have text and email in writing, because now you've said that and, hey, you said that versus him trying to say that maybe you didn't say stuff truthfully. But whatever. It's lawyer stuff.
That's what you got me for, or us for. Then we talk about the board members. I think I gotta do help with C. Actually, I'll let the chairman go to that one if you'd like. I guess it says your name on it.
Outside of meetings.
See, yeah. So in addition to the provisions of the section 214A, board members shall adhere to the following. 1, board members shall at all times exhibit professional and courteous behavior when interacting with the county administrator and county employees. Under no circumstances shall it be acceptable for a county board member to berate, belittle, or shout at the county administrator or county employee, whether in a meeting or outside of a meeting. And that should be with anything. You should not do that. You should conduct yourselves within a professional manner. However, it goes back to that hole I was digging, and you going and being able to see that person dig that hole and just not get on them, just be nice about it. And everybody deserves respect, and you deserve respect too for being in your office that you're in. Even though you're gonna get some members of the public that may do what we say is not permissible in our board rules to county employees and the administrator. Public may do that to you, and just don't go back on them and be mad. De-escalate the situation. Number 2 is board members shall refrain from requesting that a county employee perform a task or function without first obtaining the appropriate authorization. Matters relating to the official county business should be addressed through the administrator and the appropriate committee other than the board or commission. So that goes back onto that hole digging. When you're over there looking at the employees or you're watching them, telling them how to do their job, you're not allowed to do that. That is up to the county administrator and that department head. And your first thing, if you don't think that the employees are doing a good enough job, you should go to the department head first. And if that's not getting resolved, then you go to the county administrator.
And that leads right into D, where you talk about your roles, and we've kind of harped on this a little bit already, but the board members shall refer complaints or concerns regarding the management and operations of the county to the appropriate step in that chain of command, which is the department head and or administrator, given the circumstances. And you should not really address outside the chain of command. As the chair indicated, you should listen to that constituent's concerns, but you shouldn't address those concerns saying this is what's going to happen or this is how we're going to do it. You should say we're going to take that up with the department head or the chair, or the administrator. And as the chair indicated, there's ways around that if for some reason you think that you're not getting the results that you're looking for on down the line after you follow that chain of command.
So the next one we're going to talk about is remote attendance.
So the remote attendance has been new now since 2020 with the recent events that we've experienced, and it does make some valid points in having that. It does give opportunities for board members. But our board, in our rules that we've created, is not more than 6 regular scheduled county board meetings. So 6 meetings that you are able to attend remotely. It does fall back onto the county board chair in his or her discretion to limit the amount that you're able to attend remotely. And it has been discussed remotely, what does that mean? So when you attend remotely, via WebEx or Zoom, that you should have your face being able to see through video that show that you were there. However, that has not happened and it does not happen, and I've been guilty of that myself. The other option is by going through phone. You can call through phone and attend through phone, which you're not gonna know that you're, present at all, but they will know you're present because you're talking, just your face is not there. Get that, but you are able to have remote attendance if you need to. I'm not gonna knock you if you have a health issue going on, or you're at a business related thing that you're out of town, or you're on vacation. And still wanting to attend, I commend you for wanting to be on vacation and attend a county board meeting. That's actually really good. But the opportunity is there, so there should not be instance for you to just nonchalantly say, hey, I just don't want to attend because I don't feel like it. Because every opportunity is given to you to attend remotely or in person or by phone. There are circumstances where you probably might need to miss a meeting, and that is okay. Even if there is a health issue for you, a family member, a friend, or you're just on vacation, it's fine. I think if you choose to not want to attend because I'm busy doing something, well, your duty was when you got elected was to be here to serve, and so you should think about that first before you do. But we all have personal lives. But when you do that, try to make sure that your camera is on. It doesn't happen. I don't know what our enforcement means are, I guess, on that legally, but our board rules say it's 6 meetings. You can attend virtually, but I'm pretty lenient on some stuff and understand that people have lives, so.
The one thing, if I could point, you do not attend closed session when you are remotely. So just as an FYI, we had one earlier this year. Somebody was remotely, I can't remember who it was, but we had to have them leave because of the rules.
And the reason why that is for as far as closed session part as remotely is that we cannot show who was in the room with you at that same exact time. Like you could be in a room that's closed off and say yes, but then all of a sudden you could open the door and somebody could come in and hear that. And it could be on an issue that we're pertaining to. It could be that person that you're friends with. I don't know. I'm just making that up. But you just can't prove that somebody else is not there.
So the next thing we want to highlight is personal electronic devices, 4.05.
So that comes down to having your iPad and your cell phones that you have, even your personal computer. They're all able to be used for county stuff, but knowing that if you're conducting business on the county, your devices are subject to open records then. And so people will be able to review to a certain extent, correct? They can't go in.
To a certain extent, yes.
They can't go in depth into your private life, but if you do use your phone to conduct certain stuff, like you send a text message to a couple other supervisors discussing, that's obviously open record stuff. But if you wanted to talk to your husband about a matter, that's not, unless you were talking about, and that person was included in on that conversation, and that's.
But if I could point one thing out, it says that you're not supposed to be on your phones when you're here at this meeting either. I had a client during COVID who they were doing everything remotely, and that they were then texting back and forth during the meeting, and trying to line up votes during it. And it was actually very problematic. So I think that's I applaud you for having that in there. That was one of the things that jumped out in preparation for today, that you guys had that in there, that you're supposed to be off your phones other than in emergencies during the meeting. So I commend you for that. Not everybody has that in their language.
And I'm not gonna knock you for using your phone. I'm not gonna call you out unless I see it's being absurd, because we each have our own personal things and I don't need to know you about your personal life. And I don't think anybody else does. So if you got your own personal stuff going on, then deal with that. But if it becomes an issue, then we'll deal with that. Mr. Perry?
I sometimes use mine to watch the packet instead of having my iPad here, so.
Yeah, it's hard to justify. It is hard to justify on that, and that's totally permissible. You might forget your iPad one day and you have to use your phone. So how can I judge that unless I specifically ask you and you can tell me to go blow off, right? But.
All right, so the next thing we'll talk about is the recognition, debate, and voting at county board meetings.
You can start out with that.
You want me to start, or you want to?
Yeah, you start.
Okay. So from a debate standpoint, you get 2 debates based on the rules, not to exceed 10 minutes. And so from that standpoint, that's what you get for an issue. And so if we have a particular spicy topic, there doesn't seem to be any allowance for you to say, I yield my time to so-and-so. It's you get 2 cracks at it, total of 10 minutes. I can't say, I haven't been here long enough to say how judicious, I know we do a very good job on open public comments, but we'll have to see in regards to that. I know that we have some topics that are going to be on top of everybody's mind in the next handful of months that will be more present. So you want to make sure that when you're speaking, that you are meeting those standards. From a voting standpoint, we generally, unless roll call or secret ballot, and the only time that we use secret ballot is for elections of officers. Okay, other than that, it's not a secret ballot. I got somebody on that one too once. The roll call will generally do voice vote unless it's roll call is required. Roll call is generally required when we spend money. What's the other?
So, yeah.
Generally, when you spend money, that's always going to be after roll call, or if somebody calls for division. I shouldn't tell you that, but if somebody calls for division, then it's a vote in regards to person will do a roll call vote. In regards to the roll call, we start with District 1 for that particular one. Then the next one, we start with District 2, 3, all the way until we get through 21 and then back again. That make sense?
So any supervisor can call for a roll call vote. And that roll call vote means that then the clerk would go out and start out, let's say at District 1. And so that vote is done, hashed out, it was yay or nay, happened. 3 agenda items down from now, where we were at, another supervisor calls for a roll call vote. Now we start out at District 2, and then go from there, and District 1 would be the last one. But any supervisor can call for a roll call vote at any point in time, at any meeting. So when I call, so let's say the county board chair says, all right, we're gonna call for a vote. All those in favor, one can say roll call vote, and then we're like, all right, so then Derek's got his little sheet that he has, as he starts asking individual supervisors. Then you have to answer aye or nay.
And if I may, I will go right into the abstention part, which is D, and I think that should be read actually after preparation. All county board members are expected to represent their constituents and fully participate in meetings of the county board, including voting. Nonetheless, there are recognized circumstances where participation in discussion, voting, or both would be inappropriate. A board member may abstain from participating in discussion, voting, or both. When a board member abstains, the board chair shall provide the board member with the opportunity to explain the reason for the abstaining, and if a reason is provided, the county clerk shall record the reason in the meeting. So if, trying to find an empty district, District 19 says that I'm abstaining from a vote, the chair will say, do you want to state your reasoning? If he or she does do that, then that would be put in the minutes. Now, if you have a family, and we'll talk about this as it comes up, but ultimately, if you have a personal stake in something, so for example, we're issuing a contract. We're issuing a contract to mow lawns, and you own a lawn mowing company that's going to get a contract. You're going to have to abstain. Truthfully, you may not be able to get the contract. Truthfully, but if we get to that point, now if it's something where it impacts everybody, and you just happen to be one person that's impacted, then you won't have to abstain. We'll go on that on a case-by-case basis. Sorry if I cut you off.
So next we have public decorum and comment.
Is that me?
Yes, that's you.
Oh, okay. Let's just talk about public comment in particular. You guys have a really strong policy in regards to letting everybody speak, which could be appreciated. You let people speak remotely, which not everybody does. I think that's to be commended. But also, I think you guys do a really good job of limiting it to 3 minutes. The big key for you, especially for the new members, you have to understand that when Sally Smith comes and talks and tells you everything that's important to her, or Tommy Smith comes in and says everything that's important to him, you can't respond. That's the biggest one. And I know that you feel like you're being disrespectful, but that's what the rules of the board are. And that's done for a number of different reasons. I can just speak from other clients. It's done primarily to keep the moving, A, to treat everybody equally in the eyes of the government, and then B is to help move things along. And so from that perspective, that's why generally it is done. And once again, you can't go longer than 3 minutes, so we can't say, hey, I want to yield my time to so-and-so. It's 3 minutes, 3 minutes is it. You know, we'll just kind of leave it at that. Any questions about that? The other thing is that public members can't comment during meetings. So I can't say, hey, Sally Smith, I want to reserve it for her to talk during, when we're talking about fair entries last week, right? Fair entries. We can't, because now it's different if it's a member of an employee and they're asked to talk about something specifically to address the board. So if you had a fair director was able to say, well, we had the administrator here last time and she was able to talk about, I think there was a question about profitability or something like that. That's one thing. But you can't have, say, I want Sally Smith to talk during that time. It's only during the public comment period. Okay.
Next thing is reconsideration.
Want me to take that one? Okay. Reconsideration, basically, I'm going to use I think that was the only one we really voted on the other day was fair prices. So let's say you went home, we voted on the fair prices the other day and you went home and you're like, man, I really it just didn't sit well for me. You can do a motion to reconsider, but you have to be on the prevailing side. Okay, so you can't, I don't even remember how we voted for it, but whatever we voted for last $5 maybe or something like that. We did $5. You could come back and say, hey, I want to reconsider it, and I was on the prevailing side. You can't say I want to reconsider it because I was on the losing side. You have to be on the prevailing side. And in regards to that, you would need to get on the agenda. We talked about how to get on the agenda before, so you'd have to do that. But you would have to be on the prevailing side. And then when the vote happened, you would have to get the majority to bring that back to the table. Okay, so it's not, the initial reconsideration is not to flip it, it's to just get it back on the table, then have another conversation and debate about that. Does that make sense? Yes.
Once it's back on the table, can you talk about it at that same meeting, or is it a subsequent?
You talk about it at that same meeting. Yep. But the motion to reconsider, theoretically, it could be done, the motion to reconsider could be done at that meeting, or it could be done on the next meeting. After that, it can't be reconsidered.
As long as it's posted on the agenda.
Correct.
So you can ask, so if you're on the prevailing, let's say you voted something down, and the majority said no. Well, now you have a change of heart now after you thought about that and you voted in dissent of that. And you want that to be brought back up to reconsider to have something approved. You can, as a person that dissented against that, have that put on the agenda through the county board chair's request. Put that on the agenda and have that reconsidered. Now, hopefully there will be some homework done that have that return, but that might not happen. But it does specify how to do that stuff in your county officials handbook on 131. How to be able to go about that. And our county board rules specify that also. But even if there was a resolution that was approved and you felt that, well, we did a good job at approving that, but now after it's been enacted for a couple of months that we need to maybe modify that, you can bring that back onto the county board agenda as long as it's put on the agenda to be up for reconsideration again, along with good merit. But normally that would go through the committee itself. So you'd want to start out at the committee first. However, it doesn't have to be. In legality, you could bring it to the county board, but you're a strong fetched at wanting to do that. But I would start at the committee first.
So we can talk about resolutions, and Derek, do you want to start this discussion on resolutions?
Yeah, so you're all familiar with what resolutions are. They're formal statements by the county board for a decision. They're different than an ordinance, right? An ordinance is considered a law for just simple terms, and an ordinance is just, or a resolution is a public statement of something you're doing. So resolutions, we have a format for resolutions. They contain lots of information, but nonetheless, the resolutions really should be crafted and reviewed by the standing committee before they found their way to county board. And I like that because that means at the committee level, you will have an agenda cover that's going to explain what the agenda topic is. And if you're going to vote on something that's going to move to county board through that via formal statement of a resolution, you would have, the committee has to forward that to county board. So on the bottom of those resolutions, you'll always see which was the sponsoring committee or the liaison committee that moved it through county board. So resolutions, we can provide the template for those, but they have information. The information can be varied. It really just depends on the decision you all are making. But then those should really be proofed at county board or proofed at the committee level, wordsmithed at the county level, and you should all be approving the final version of that resolution to go to county board. That being said, on the county board floor, we can make changes to resolution, kind of like we, with the one we did last with the fair one, actually. We added that children 5 and under free on Friday and Saturday night. So we can change those at county board. But you should all get in the habit of having that resolution all clean and concise in what decision you want the county board to, elaborate on and then make. The resolutions will be shared with Port Council. They will review ordinances and resolutions before they go to county board. Ideally before they go to standing committee, but at the very least before they go to county board. So we can put up the resolution template, which again can all change, but these should not. But the take-home message of this is a formal action you guys are putting in a formal statement. So it shouldn't be wordsmithed on the board floor. They should have been thought about through the standing committee, and the standing committee should sign off on that resolution. On the bottom, we know who was in favor and who wasn't in favor of it, and then it goes to county board. And there are numerous times that we're asked to pull resolution, whatever, because you all do reference those. We reference those for bills being paid. We reference them for decisions being made on a multitude of levels, which is why you need to make sure those are wordsmithed and correct with the information you want on there before they go to county board. And we can provide the template on what's supposed to be in them. Is that good? Anyone have any questions about resolutions, formal statements, and an action you're taking? But they are not ordinances. Ordinances are law. Right? You're good?
All right, we'll talk about exclusion from closed session at committee, other board, or commission meetings.
So a board member that's not a member of the committee, other board or commission may be excluded from a closed session portion of the committee upon the majority vote of the committee. So what that means is as a board member, you can sit in on a closed session of a committee that you're not a part of. Okay, but you also need to know that that committee can choose not to let you sit in on by formal vote. Okay, I want to also talk about closed session as a whole here. I can't stress enough that closed session is closed session. What happens, the reason we go to closed session is for purposes that are allowed by state statute. And the reason primarily is so that's not public consumption. And so we want to make sure that whatever happens in closed session is not in closed session. It only stays there, I'm sorry. That's why I recommend with all my clients not to record closed session, not to take notes on closed session. Some do, generally not my clients, but some do. But that's my recommendation. You know, we've had one closed session, I think that I can recall since I've been corporation counsel. And we dealt with that and we handled that there. But it needs to, whether it's committee or whether it's actually the full board, you just need to make sure what happens in closed session happens in closed session. You don't go and share that home with your partner or Timmy down the street or whoever. It should be held in closed session.
What constitutes as closed session? So it could be a public bidding, right? Receiving,
Generally, public bidding is not, because it would be, you have to take that, well, it depends on what, I take it back. It depends what it is. If we're doing a construction project, that's actually open meeting.
Yeah.
If it's a closed meeting, so like when we applied to be corporation counsel, you could have gone into closed session to consider those bids, because that you could have done. Employment is a big one. I mean, that's probably the biggest one that we go for that. Union negotiations is another one that you go to closed session for. Those are the three biggest ones.
Selling of property?
Selling a property could be, it depends on the type of property. So those, there's a broad one that says in the interest of negotiations and expending public money. That's a little dicey. That's why that's a case-by-case basis. The other thing I learned is that elected officials are not considered employees as it relates to closed session. Okay? So for example, let's say somebody here created, we're trying to expel somebody. Okay? We'll go to the nth degree, right? That has to be an open session. That is not in closed session. We have to potentially fill these spots right here. That's an open session. It's not in closed session. Okay. So that's, elected officials are not considered employees that we can go to closed session on.
Any employment related is always closed session. You should not talk about any employees' merits or compensation. I guess compensation would be a different thing, but like the merits of their job, if they're performing well, should all be under closed session and not open. Especially if there was something that happened in their personal life, whatever that.
And that also helps protect us from a lawsuit in the sense that discrimination, those types of things. So we just want to make sure that it's done in closed session as much as possible. Now, somebody, especially if we're trying to, they can choose to move it to open session. So if I'm an employee and you're going to go to closed sessions to talk about my performance, I can say, hey, no, I want it. I can request it in public. And then that can be in public. I've actually never had that happen before, but from a statutory standpoint, that's allowed.
So if we do go into closed session and there is a closed session, how do we go into closed session at the end of our agenda or the middle part of our agenda? Do we ask for a roll call vote or anything else to be stated, or is it just a majority vote?
No, it has to be roll call vote to go in and to go out. The other thing is, other than a very rare circumstance, you cannot vote in closed session. And you cannot get an idea of, say, District 12, 13, 14, they're going to say yeses, and 19, 20, 21 are going to say no, you can't do that. It's there for you to have an open discussion. You can't say this is how I'm going to vote or this is how I want you to vote. It's for that open discussion and for learning. I actually just got out of a lawsuit settled on for the plaintiff for a school district that we said voted in closed session. And so, like I said, the only people who win those ones are attorneys. So.
But you might be in closed session too for committee, and you might have the administrator that's going to be involved with that, and that administrator should be there also if you do have closed session in committee. But final say does come back onto the county board on the ultimate decision that's made by a county administrator during such thing. So that needs to be evaluated in a performance thing, not an actual decision that she makes. I shouldn't say she, the administrator makes, because the administrator does oversee all department heads and employees. It's defined in her role.
And the last thing. The last thing is just procedure for enforcement. Nathan, if you want to talk about that.
And it's just laid out there and what happens if it violations. And so basically there's a change, the ability to have the powers of the board rules to immediately bring a board member's conduct into conformity of the board rules. So the chair can do that initially. So let's say a member is being very belligerent. Okay, the chair can bring them into order immediately. Additionally, I think we've skipped over it. The chair can remove a board member or a committee member for malfeasance or for improper decorum. Okay, they can't remove them for the wrong disagreeing with your ideas. But if I'm just up yelling and screaming, or I'm saying, hey, you're a son of a gun, those types of things, the board chair technically can do that. And so from that standpoint, it could be get to the point where you have law enforcement remove somebody. That's not going to happen here, but that's, one of the ways that could happen. We talked then about the, let's see where we're at. In addition, the board chair or other presiding officer of a meeting shall refer the matter to the executive and finance committee to determine what, if any, further sanction is warranted. And I actually forgot to print off the next sheet, which had the sanctions on it. I think if you can scroll it down just a little bit. You see the 6 different sanctions there. We've got the private reprimand, the censure without a formal resolution, censure with a formal resolution, removal from position of committee chair, removal from committee, referral to executive finance committee to determine if cause exists to remove the board member from office. And then it talks about if the board refers the member to the executive finance committee to determine if they can be removed, they need to, the committee is authorized to appoint agents to conduct any further investigation, verify charges seeking the board member's removal, and prosecute the board member for removal. Any such proceedings shall comply with Wisconsin Chapter 17. Now, that would most likely be either myself, or for some reason, if we had to get outside counsel, that's who would most likely head that up in there. Additionally, you should see that in addition to enforcements established under 5.01 and without limitations, the board or the committee may refer the violation of the board rules to the ethics board by filing the referral with corporation counsel, myself, or the county clerk. And such referral shall be considered a verified complaint under ordinance 23.6 parent 8, which is under the ethics code. Okay, correct. I believe so. That's a mouthful, but that is the general process if something is going wrong.
A high-level overview of the rules of the board.
I discussed with Administrator Clements earlier today. I thought that it would be good to have a little bit more orientation come at further dates at maybe some other meetings, just do short little snippets of different things. I don't know what your wishes are of that, but I think that it would probably be pretty good to have that. And this kind of just got sprung on. It didn't get sprung on, but it's just kind of new that we're getting here, coming in. I think now that we have more time to think about this and kind of see how the board reacts and does different things, I think it'd be good to bring up different issues and then we could talk about further at a different time and be more in depth at that. So we have a better understanding. And it might take another board meeting or at least a little workshop, I guess, that we could have something at some point. So does anybody have any questions on agenda item number 5, which is your supervisor orientation that Nathan, Tricia, Clerk Kalish, myself talked about tonight?
Chair,
Harry?
I'd just like to say that I really approve of the orientation in the future. So many of us were, several of us were appointed to this board. Last fall, we didn't have any board.
We talked about that. Yeah.
Really? So, it still will be helpful to us.
That'll be a good time to do these things.
Yeah. Sure.
So with Attorney Russell right now, we're passing out was the county officials workshop. So there are several dates in this pamphlet you're receiving where county officials are gonna go and you're gonna learn more in depth what you learned tonight. There are several dates. One that's closest to us is May 11th. It's in Iowa County. I'm probably not able to make that one, but the other one would be Beaver Dam is the one that I'm able to make. Travel around and go to that, and I've been to a few of them in the past. Very good. You're gonna learn different things. You're gonna learn about electronic voting because you're gonna get your own little voting tablet, which we should have here. But it costs money to have that, but they got different officials from the counties association coming in and talking. Several attorneys also. So we do provide a lunch. It used to be held here at the White House. We're not in.
So if you are interested in attending, you can let me know and I will get you signed up and we'll do the payment.
This is something that the county does pay for you to attend. Do you believe you get reimbursed mileage on that and possible room stay if you're traveling out, there is room stay available also. That's up to a certain, I know we've rewritten the rules on that, so I guess I'm not familiar. It's over 50 miles, something like that. There's a certain mileage now that
I think we kind of took the mileage out, but it's got to be within reason.
Right.
You know, there's got to be the cost benefit analysis.
Supervisor Turk?
Mr. Chair, in the past, there were also per diem paid for attendance. Is that the case again this year?
Yeah, yes. You need to, it's part of your job, so it'd be good for you to learn it. Wouldn't be opposed to that, but I guess that's up to the board to make a decision for per diem. It is a meeting of county business, so.
So just the last thing that I wanted to show you is the website. So a couple of things to look at when you go across this banner. You've got your agendas and minutes. So if you click on there, that will take you to all of the agendas. You can click on the county board, get to where we are now. All agendas are posted, all minutes, all the packets, and all the videos. So if there's a time you can't make a meeting and you want to be able to go back and watch it, here's your opportunity to do that. We have upcoming events on here, and so it has the calendar of the different meeting times. This is new, and this is something I'm most excited about because sometimes it's hard to track down when these meetings are. So we have this one central location there that lists all our meetings. We have news and announcements. So here's where we do like our advertisement for bids, request for proposals, job postings. I do a monthly administrator update. Those different things are posted on there. There's tax information, employment information, election information, but you can also go up here to the different departments, and then it lists all the different departments, and you can gather more information about them there. We also have government here. And this is again where you can get to agenda and minutes. County board supervisors are there. We will have to update that listing now that we've got everything completed. And this is where your bios will go. But we also have the link to the county board rules. We have the official directory for all the different townships. So if you want to click on Eagle Township, and it has their chairman, the supervisors, the clerk, the treasurer, all that information is out there.
About Oregon, are they on there?
Yes.
Make sure that that one.
Probably needs updated though. Unless Derek is updated.
Yeah, I think we up, yeah, it's updated with your new clerk.
If you do notice that there are errors on that, please be letting us know so that we can work with MIS to get these things updated. But that is the last thing that I just wanted to show you. That is, okay.
Can you go to the biography? What do you gotta say?
That calendar thing is awesome because I struggle with that more than I try to send everything to my phone so I know where I'm going.
Go to the
That's
biography.
a big deal.
County government supervisors.
And the calendar can be found right on that cover page. I go to government supervisors.
This is something that I have here with county board supervisors. So our names are listed here and it was sent out for a biography. I think it would be nice that we got a new website now to have our picture taken as individual supervisors to go on there so people can click on that and see who we are as a person. It's not really needed, but I think it comes down to each one of us, and I don't know how to go approach that to make that a reality, but I think it's professional that we do that.
So they can track us down in Walmart.
Somebody may not know who we are and know that that's the person, and at least put a face to the name.
So we
I think-
could have MIS at a meeting in the future and they can take pictures and get them added to the website.
And then years ago, thinking about this, you look at some old history photos of the county boards, they all got a group picture, and I don't think we've ever had a group picture in my 10 years on here, but maybe that's something we could talk about at a later date. But I'd like to see some, with this new website, at least come down with having some pictures on there, along with a biography. And I know there was a timeline for that biography, but I'm pretty sure though, if you were to write one a little bit later on, put one up there, that it would still be posted because of us, so. That's up to you guys to make that decision. I don't know how to go about that. To
Yeah,
have a picture
absolutely.
taken if.
We'll work on that.
Okay.
Yep. So that is what I had, and like Carrie said, we'll work on doing things in the future at meetings, just in small pieces.
Anything on that agenda item number 5? Hearing none. So we're gonna move on to agenda item number 6, which is discussion of possible action on approval of committee on committees assignment. So you received in your packet, the committee on committees met last Wednesday and made supervisor placement and some citizen member placements on committees. This is your objective now as a county board to say, yes, we approve of those committee assignments, or no, we don't like this. Or if there is a supervisor that feels strongly that they should be on a committee, please speak your piece now and we can talk about it as a group. So are there any further questions or discussions on the Committee on Committees assignments? Probably need a motion, yes.
I move.
Supervisor Welty?
I move that we, do I move that we accept these?
Yes,
I
accept
move that we
the,
accept the nominations as presented.
Second. So motion by Supervisor Welty to accept Committee on Committees proposal for committee assignments for this county board session of 2026-2027. Seconded by Supervisor Kramer. Is there any discussion now on the acceptance of Committee on Committees assignments? Everybody's okay with those?
Mr. Chair.
Really?
The only thing I would say is we talked about it on committees. Some were pretty aggressive, I would say, and how many committees they signed up for, and that might get overwhelming. And I think there may come a time that rather than be overwhelmed, that if it's too much, don't be afraid to say that, right? Because it can get to be too much. I enjoy the enthusiasm, I will say that, because sometimes we've had it where there was not much enthusiasm, so that's good. But just remember, don't let it overwhelm, is what I would say. Is there something that, or if you get into it and say, wow, this isn't anything I thought this was, speak up, is what I would say.
Thank you, Supervisor Cooey. On the second note, with what he mentioned, we do have 2 open spots that are on the county board yet, and we are advertising for those spots currently. And there may be applicants for that. So at some point, we're gonna have a discussion on committee assignments for those people. There may be some committee assignments that other people have that may have to give up those committee assignments for those people. Administrator Clements, do you have anything?
I was just gonna say that.
I'll open the floor again for any more discussion on committee assignments. Anybody wish that they had different or want a different assignment? We can have that discussion right now. Okay, then I'm gonna call for a vote, since we already have a motion and a second to approve the Committee on Committees assignments for this county board session for 2026-2027. All those in favor, they can signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion does carry. Agenda item number 7, discussion of possible action on election of standing committee officers. So standing committees, reason why we're having this election tonight for these standing committees is that there are 3 positions, right, that are open on executive finance. 4, 3?
There's
4.
So
There's 4 positions open that are on executive and finance, and the eligibility for executive and finance are the county board chair, vice chair of the county board, and 3 at-large members, and 4 standing committee chairpersons. So tonight, we're gonna go individually and elect the standing committee chairpersons of those different committees, of those 4 standing committees. So, Mr. Cooey?
Doesn't the standing committees, isn't the chair has the opportunity to appoint the vice, appoint?
So how we've done it before is that the county board chair would call for nominations for the chairs for the standing committee, and then the chair of the standing committee would call for nominations for the vice chair. So last time we did chair and vice chair at the same.
Understood, but to be on finance, I thought there was an opportunity, if the chair didn't want to be on finance, they could appoint the vice chair or whatever at the standing committees, but maybe I'm wrong in that. But I thought at one time we did that. Maybe the first time we did it. Or the first time we did it.
Remember it all, Dave?
I know that circumstance didn't come about. I don't remember the discussion specifically.
Because it was, for some reason, I was thinking of it as someone else was appointed, because I think what it was is the chair was already on.
Perhaps, and I think that's why when committee on committees met, they also assigned the alternates 1 and 2 for that committee, if there were overlap between chair and vice chair moving forward. So you'll look on, if you see on the executive and finance standing committee, when committee on committees met, they picked the 3 people, you all just approved that, but then they also outlined some alternates that could be, or would be suggested to fill if there was overlap. So I think that's, Mark, maybe what we're kind of.
I was just thinking we might have done it in a different sequence.
Yeah.
So like the county board chair and county board vice chair may not have been. No, they would have been done.
Yeah,
already.
yeah, they
There
would.
was something that was done to where the vice chairs, because of overlap on executive and finance. Like maybe the vice chair of the county board was the chair of public works or something. And then that's where
I think the vice chair of it, or the vice chair is the chair of the executive finance. I think the chair is the chairman of.
but I
any
think they were
committees.
chairs of
Oh,
other committees, which led to, they
So like
could
if-
do both.
So like if Larry got appointed chair of community and health services,
Yes.
he could then say, I'm going to have it be Sandy.
Exactly,
Executive.
exactly. I think that's how that was.
Okay.
Is there a reason why, or what's rationale for not having the committees make about their own?
Chair, they do. So
They do.
they'll
We're doing
call
that now.
Or the community and health services, and those committee members will vote for their chair.
Okay. All right, just checking.
actually, I was discussing, I didn't want to talk with Nathan on this. I didn't know whether it was myself that needs to facilitate the county board or the chairs for those committees.
I think
Or is
that-
it Derek that does that as an independent
No, I
person?
think you would do that. Derek's only role is last week and then he.
And then,
Sorry, I don't know if that's good or bad as chairman, but.
then we're gonna do, the chairman and the vice chairperson.
Right, so the
Yes.
county board chair will open nominations for the standing committee chair, and then the standing committee chair takes it over for nomination for vice chair.
And then whoever is chairperson for that committee then is automatically a seat on the executive and finance. Unless that person is, selected as an at-large board member, and then that would go down to the alternates. That would be, so. Okay, so I guess we're gonna go right from the top down. So we're gonna go from Community and Health Services Committee Chair. So I'd like to call the committee or the Committee on Community and Health Services to order, I guess, and would look for nominations for chairperson of the Community and Health Services Committee. Supervisor Perry.
Nominate Sandra Kramer.
So we have a nomination for Sandy Kramer. Do I need a second, Mr.? Yes. Second, Shirley Welty? You would second? Okay. So we got a nomination for Sandy Kramer for Community Health Services Chairperson, seconded by Shirley Welty. Is there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations for Community Health Services Committee Chair?
Now, if I understand right, you have to be on that committee. That's not for everybody else.
Correct. So you do have to be on that committee in order to vote for committee chair. So I should bring that back up. But I'm going to call for a third vote. So is there any other nominations for Community and Health Services Committee Chair? So right now we have the current members that are on Community Health Services: Mary Miller, Sandra Kramer, Larry Engel, Shirley Welty, Rod Perry, Mary Collins Johnsman. Sorry for not saying that to begin. So we have a motion by Supervisor Perry, seconded by Supervisor Welty, to have Sandy Kramer as Community Health Services Standing Committee's chairperson. Is there any further discussion from those committee members? A unanimous ballot would be suggested for this, if somebody's willing to make that from that committee. To cast a unanimous ballot.
I'll make that motion to cast the unanimous ballot for Sandra Kramer.
All right, so I have a motion by Supervisor Perry to close nominations and to cast a unanimous ballot for Sandy Kramer, Supervisor Sandy Kramer, as Community Health Services Chairperson. Is there a second? Seconded by Shirley Welty. Supervisor Welty. Are there any other discussions on the closing of nominations? Hearing none, I will take a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Different. So now I'm going to turn this meeting over to the Community Health Services Standing Committee over to Supervisor Kramer.
And we need a nomination for vice chair for the Community Health and Human Services. Do I have a nomination?
I'll nominate Rod Perry
to be the vice chair.
Do I have a second?
Supervisor Rod Perry, sorry.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
So I have a first and second nomination for a motion for Rod Perry. Are there any other nominations for vice chair for the Health and Human Service, Community and Health Service Standing Committee? Any other nominations for the Community and Health Services Standing Committee for vice chair? Any other nominations for the Community Health and Human Services vice chair? Hearing none, all in favor of nominating Rod Perry as the vice chair for the Health and Human Services, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Now I need a nomination for an anonymous ballot.
Harry, you're good.
I'm good.
You just took a vote, you're fine.
Okay, all right, good. I have to do that plan.
Your committee's chosen then? Done?
Yep, Rod Perry.
All right, so assuming that you're gonna turn the gavel back over to me now.
Shall we, you bet.
All right. So we're gonna go right down onto the line to a Natural Resources Committee. Right now, the current Natural Resources Committee is Steve Caro, Randy Schoonover, Richard McKee, Steve Meyer, Kevin Nolan, Rod Perry, and Darlene Waldsmith-Tagley-Petrie. So the former member, which I forgot to mention up at Community Health Services, was Sandy Kramer. The former chairperson is Steve Caro. So I would accept nominations now for committee chair for the Natural Resources Standing Committee. Mr. McKee?
I'd like to nominate, Andy.
So we have a nomination for Randy Schoonover for chairperson of the Natural Resources Committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Nolan. Is there any other nominations for Natural Resources Standing Committee chairperson? Are there any other nominations for chairperson for a standing committee of natural resources? Say it one more time. Any nominations for Natural Resources Standing Committee chairperson? Right now we have Supervisor Schoonover for chairperson. Hearing none, then a motion would be appropriate to close nominations from those committee members. Motion by Mr. McKeef to,
I'll make a motion to close nominations and to cast a unanimous ballot to Andy.
all right, so we have a motion by Supervisor McKee to close nominations and cast a unanimous ballot for Supervisor Schoonover to be chairperson for Natural Resources Committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Supervisor Perry. Are there any further discussions on the closing of nominations for chairperson? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion does carry. So Supervisor Schoonover, I'm going to turn the gavel over to you right now to elect your vice chair of your committee. So just remember the standing committee members are Steve Caro, Randy Schoonover, Richard McKee, Steve Meyer, Kevin Nolan, Rod Perry, and Darlene Waldsmith-Tagley-Petrie.
I am asking for a nomination for the vice chair of the National Resources Standing Committee. I nominate someone.
Mr. Chair,
Nominate, but Mr. Perry's got something.
I'll nominate Kevin Nolan.
No, Mr. Perry is on my committee.
He's on that for ten.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong committee. Never mind, I'll shut up. Sorry.
We got the nomination for Kevin Nolan. Do I hear a second for that nomination?
I'll second that.
Now do I call for another nomination? Is there any other nominations for vice chair of the National Resources Standing Committee? First time. Calling for the same second time. Calling for the third time. All those in favor, right? For Kevin Nolan to be our vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. We're gonna move on from, we don't need to close out that committee thing, right? It's Corporation Council.
No, we're good. That's fine.
So we're gonna move on next to, standing committee of the Public Works Committee. So Public Works right now is consisting of Supervisor McKee, Supervisor Welty, Supervisor Thompson, Supervisor Turk, Supervisor Williams, Cooey, and Supervisor McGuire. Former chairperson was Supervisor Cooey. So I would entertain nominations now for chairperson of the Public Works Standing Committee. Mr. Turk.
I would nominate Mark Cooey to be chair of Public Works.
Mr. Turk nominates Supervisor Cooey to be chair of Public Works. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Welty. Is there any other nominations for chairperson of Public Works? Any other nominations for chairperson of Public Works? Any other chairperson nominations for Public Works? Hearing none, I think a motion will be appropriate for supervisor on that committee to close nominations. Supervisor Turk?
I would make the motion to close nominations and cast a unanimous ballot for Mark Cooey as chair of Public Works.
We have a motion on the floor to suspend nominations for chairperson for Public Works and select Mark Cooey, Supervisor Cooey for chairperson of Public Works and to close nominations. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor McKee. Call for a vote. All those signify by saying yes for Supervisor Cooey, say aye.
Aye.
Those saying no, say no. Motion does carry. Supervisor Cooey, Committee for Public Works.
Okay, so we need to appoint a vice chair for the Public Works Standing Committee and take nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Dave Turk to be the vice chair of Public Works.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second. Are there any other nominations? Vice chair. Any other nomination? Vice chair. Any other nominations for vice chair? There's no other nominations, so I need a motion to approve.
Cast unanimous.
Cast a unanimous ballot. Dave Turk.
I'd like to make a motion to cast a unanimous ballot for Dave Turk as the vice chair of Public Works Standing Committee.
I'll second that motion.
That's all we need to do. We don't need to do all in favor on this one, or we do?
Yeah.
Still need to do, okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
All righty, so we're gonna, congratulations, Mark and Dave. So we're gonna go on to Public Safety Standing Committee. So the current Public Safety Standing Committee, right now, the committee and committees, as picked, and that you guys have approved, is Supervisor Miller, Supervisor Myers, Supervisor Welty, Supervisor Thompson, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Collins Johnson, Supervisor Frank. Last session, Public Safety Committee Chair was Supervisor Frank. I would like this body to know from County Board here that Supervisor Frank is also online right now as we speak. So he's acknowledged that. So I'm gonna open the floor for nominations for Public Safety Standing Committee Chair person. Supervisor Nolan.
I nominate Supervisor Tiffany Thompson.
We have a nomination for Supervisor Thompson for committee chair. Is there a second? there a second for Supervisor Tiffany Thompson for Chairperson of Public Safety? Mr. Meyer. Second. So we have a motion and a second for Supervisor Tiffany Thompson as Public Safety Chair. I'm going to open up the floor for nominations for Public Safety Chair. Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Supervisor Frank.
So we have a nomination for Supervisor Frank for Public Safety Chair. Is there a second?
Can I second myself?
I think you would be able to second yourself, yes?
Do that then.
So we have a motion and a second for Supervisor Frank to be Chairperson of Public Safety. Are there any other nominations for Chairperson for Public Safety? Or any other nominations for Chairperson for Public Safety? Are there any other nominations for Chairperson for Public Safety? Hearing none, we are at a tie. I guess not a tie, but there are two people that have been nominated for Public Safety Chairperson. That is Supervisor Tiffany Thompson and Supervisor Frank. Both equally had a motion and a second.
Chair, we need to take
I'm going to confer with council here.
we need to take a short recess so we can get ballots, because this is one where we actually have to do secret ballots.
Okay. So conferring with Corporation Council, we're going to need to take about a 10-minute recess.
5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Right.
5-minute recess to create ballots, since we do have a, not really a tie, but I guess dual persons that are in chair, and we have to take a vote.
We gotta figure out how
So
Mr. Frank's gonna vote.
I'd like to call a meeting of the County Board of Supervisors back together and the Committee for Public Safety Standing Committee to order. Right now, after a brief recess at 19:09 PM. So there was two nominations for Public Safety Chairperson. They were Supervisor Thompson and Supervisor Frank. There was a secret ballot that was handed out by Clerk Kalish. Those have been counted with Corporation Counsel Russell. And I'm going to let Clerk Kalish go with those results.
Of the 5 ballots cast, you had 3 for Frank and 2 for Thompson.
So 3 for Mr. Frank and 2 for Tiffany Thompson, Supervisor Thompson. So right now, the chairperson would be Supervisor Frank, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So right now, Supervisor Frank, since you're online, I'll let you conduct this meeting. I don't think we're allowed to do that though, per our county board.
We are not, so you'll have to conduct that.
Okay, since you're online, Mr. Frank, you're not allowed to, according to county board rules, that you're not allowed to conduct a meeting.
Understood.
I
Thank
will
you.
Open the floor now for nominations in his behalf for Vice Chairperson of Public Safety. So Supervisor Nolan. There's a nomination for Supervisor Thompson. Is there a second? Supervisor Welty nominates Supervisor Thompson. Is there any other nominations for Vice Chairperson of Public Safety? Any other nominations for Vice Chairperson of Public Safety? Any nominations for Chairperson or Vice Chairperson of Public Safety? Hearing none, a unanimous ballot would be appropriate for a motion. Supervisor Nolan?
I put forth a motion to cast
Ballot.
thank you for Tiffany Thompson.
So there was a motion by Supervisor Nolan to cast a unanimous ballot for Tiffany Thompson as Vice Chairperson of Public Safety.
Frank will second.
Nominations. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Meyer. Any further discussion on the closing of nominations? Casting a unanimous ballot for Supervisor Thompson for Vice Chairperson. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Tiffany Thompson will be the Vice Chairperson of Public Safety. Be four, wouldn't it?
That's important.
Agenda item number 8 is discussion and possible action on revision of the Executive and Finance Committee assignments. So our last committee assignments that the Committee on Committees has chosen The current executive committee is Supervisor Schoonover, Supervisor Welty, Supervisor Perry. Automatic membership is Supervisor Severson and Supervisor Engel as County Board Chair and Vice Chair. At this point in time, you have a supervisor that is on this committee that is a chairperson of Natural Resources Standing Committee. That is Supervisor Schoonover. So he would go fill the chairperson of the Natural Resources Committee. So at this point in time, we do have a nomination, two people that are alternates that will be selected, I guess, unless you can open the floor for nominations, right?
Well, these are the committee assignments that you guys made.
You guys already
All right.
accepted it, so.
So we need one of the two alternate positions, so it will be a secret ballot, correct? Again?
I would understand it as alternate one if you've already selected that person.
Is that how it would be?
I believe that's how it was at committee and committees.
Okay. All right. So after conferring with council, council states that our at-large alternate number one would be the member of the Executive and Finance Committee in lieu of one of those other people that were at-large board members that was selected as a chairperson of a standing committee. So that person would be Tiffany Thompson. She's at-large alternate number one. So does a motion need to be?
I don't even think we can do, I don't think a motion needs to be done because you've already voted for everything so far, so it just
becomes a natural, or not natural, but just it's how it was.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So currently, right now, as I'm understanding this, we have the Executive and Finance Committee for this 2026-27 County Board session as chairperson, or County Board Chairperson is Supervisor Severson, Vice Chairperson of the County Board, Supervisor Engel. We do have Supervisor Kramer, Supervisor Schoonover, Supervisor Frank, and Supervisor Cooey from our standing committees. And then we have at-large members, Supervisor Thompson, Supervisor Welty, and Supervisor Perry makes up the executive committee. Is that how I'm understanding that, County Board? Okay. There's no nominations, or not nominations, but motion, it just stands as it is?
Yep, it would have had to been amended when you first accepted it.
Okay. So that's where we're at, the executive. All right. I don't see any other agenda items, but agenda item number 9 and be appropriate for adjournment.
I'll make the motion.
Supervisor Kramer makes a motion for adjournment and Supervisor Schoonover seconds that. Since the book says that we can't debate on that, I'm gonna call for a vote to adjourn our meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carries. Thank you all for taking time out of your day to come here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.